First of all, I would like to thank our Georgian colleagues, the organizing committee and the scientific committee, for their hard work to make this bridge over existing frontiers and over pandemic to bring us together to this workshop, part of the Eurachem Week 2022. Now, previous presentations help us to present this joint presentation. Which address the main elements of the revision of two Eurachem guides. You are now aware about Eurachem guides. Provide a comprehensive reference to the revision of 15189 and its current status, the standard for medical labs. And through this, to provide a brief correlation of this draft standard and 17025. Now, some abbreviations to be of use whenever you have access to the presentation via the website, not spend time now. Laboratories working towards accreditation need to better understand the requirements of the accreditation standards. And to this end, they need to have the support of other documents, those appearing in the diagram, in the figure. Other standards, publications from EA and ILAC, European and international organizations for accreditation, guides, leaflets by Eurachem, SciTag, Eurolab, Nortes, and other organizations like BIPM, OML, and EFMLM, and also publications of the National Accreditation Body. Now, this is how to find out the way towards guides and information leaflets, as already presented. And Eurachem, just to repeat, that provides important support to laboratories, mainly via publications and training. A list of training events appeared earlier. Now, we just to mention that these guides and other publications are prepared and drafted by thematic or working groups, those listed earlier. We're focusing now on the guide to quality in analytical chemistry and the one for accreditation for microbiological laboratories. The last line provides the abbreviations to be used throughout the lecture: QAC for the analytical chemistry guide and AML for the microbiological one. These two guides are now under revision, mainly due to the fact that 17025 appeared in a new form in 2017. But anyway, guides have to be reviewed and revised from time to time. We can see now just a picture of the leaflet for the new standard 17025. This was the first step made by Eurachem soon after its publication. And just listing the main aspects, the new aspects, that is risk-based thinking, uncertainty from sampling to be taken on board, use of a decision rule, metrological traceability in more detail, control of data and information management, and impartiality and liability. Some of these challenges have already been extensively addressed in existing guides. And these refer to uncertainty from sampling, statements for conformity, metrological traceability. However, some other requirements, and I refer to risk and opportunities, the use of a decision rule, information management, made it necessary to revise the two guides, QAC and AML. Now, going back to the standard, we remind that it specifies, among others, that when evaluating measurement uncertainty, all contributions have to be taken into account, including those arising from sampling. This is elaborated in the new guide with reference to the existing Eurachem SciTag guide appearing just to your right. Now, metrological traceability, another issue to be extensively addressed in the new standard, refers to the need to the laboratory to establish and maintain metrological traceability of its measurement results through calibration, which has to be provided by competent laboratory in the meaning of ILAC P10, which anyway has been revised in 2020, or use of certified reference materials, and here is reference to 17034 as an evidence of competence where deciding for providers, and also the direct realization of SI units by comparison with national or international standards. Annex A of the standard is adequately detailed on these issues. Now, the structure changes, and whatever we knew from before, for section 4 and 5 being the management requirements and technical requirements, their content has been split into 5 chapters: general, structural, resource, process, and management requirements. This is an extract from the leaflet already mentioned. Now, with regard to the risk-based thinking in the new standard, which represents the main change in its philosophy, it enhances the sense of quality assurance in the laboratory work, and don't be surprised that we don't use anymore the term preventive actions, because risk-based thinking is the tool to replacing this need. Now, the risk-based thinking is integrated throughout the text, and it's important that 31 times this is referred to in the text, with emphasis given mainly, but not only to this, mainly to impartiality, statements of conformity, management of non-conforming work, and management of control and management information, taking into account new technology. Other issues addresses the use of a decision rule as mentioned, alternative procedures for the internal quality control, more strict requirements for proficiency testing participation, expression of opinions and interpretations, control of data and information management. Now, the new draft guide is structured in a way close to the one of the standard to facilitate addressing the standard. It includes, this is important because laboratories ask how to address the risk-based thinking and so on. It includes a number of examples illustrating how to achieve this task. It also reflects changes due to the revision of other Eurachem guides and an updated bibliography. Unfortunately, we have to say that there is some delay in the revision process. It's good that the AML guide goes more smoothly. It addresses the particular needs of this sector with main emphasis to measurement uncertainty. And tomorrow there will be a lecture by Bertil Magnusson illustrating the ideas appearing in the guide, because in microbiology, measurement uncertainty is addressed in a different way. Calibration and measurement traceability, selection of methods, verification and validation, reporting of results, and wherever appropriate, different approaches that have to be followed in food and water microbiology. It is expected that the draft will be distributed very soon, and anyway, for comments and voting later, anyway, to be dated 2022. Now, let's move to the second part of this presentation with medical laboratories. Undoubtedly, the recent period with COVID provided an unexpected experience. It was a real case of risks and opportunities. The term appears in the draft standard as well. In most countries, no laboratories had the relevant tests included in their accreditation scope. And there were cases where laboratories accredited to 17025 undertook these testing activities. These aspects are being extensively discussed in the competent working group healthcare of EA Laboratory Committee, where Eurachem is participating. Now, the medical laboratories are waiting for this new standard. The revision of 2012 version, 10 years old, to have to say, is approaching its completion following the specified ISO stages. To this end, and despite the extensive support received as yet, the current draft may not necessarily remain unchanged until the publication of the new standard. This is why only main features could be referred to in such a rather short presentation. We are not going through each step, but this is the diagram illustrating the 20-year route of the standard, starting from the very first guide 25, followed then by 17025, then separating medical activities under 15189 and so on. The steps mentioned ISO stages for the revision of a standard brought us here to the question mark whether a final draft is to be prepared after the voting and some comments received. Then we have publication, and as always happens in this type of standards, transition period of 3 years. The objective of the new standard is the promotion of the welfare of patients through confidence in the quality and competence of laboratories. This is underlined in the introduction of the draft standard, and this led to the use of risks and opportunities as a need, and that they have to be planned and implemented in a way similar but not identical with 17025. It's noteworthy to mention that risk appears 81 times in the text. 31 times was the number of references in 17025. These requirements, these requirements are aligned with principles of a series of standards referring to risk management, safety, collection and transport of sample, biorisk. Now, what are the main changes dealing with this draft standard? The structure, yes, it's changing in the lines of 17025, as well as other standards in the family 70,000 of standards. There is again a distinction between shall, should, may, and can, with clear reference to what each term means. The risk-based thinking and opportunities, metrological traceability, control of data and information technology, plus the document contains the requirements for point-of-care testing, thus superseding the existing standard 22870. The picture regarding the structural changes is the same as in the case of 17025. For sure, there are some changes in the content of each title, but the boxes remain the same. 15189 has to address the particular needs of medical laboratories, and to this end, specific requirements are included to cover these needs. Now, an important issue extensively discussed in healthcare working group of EA was that, contrary to 17025, sampling is not meant to be a standalone activity within the meaning of this draft standard. And further to this, possibly due to inherent difficulties, uncertainty arising from sampling is not taken into account. This issue remains as a challenge for consideration whenever possible, in cases where this is possible. However, particular emphasis is given to the pre-examination phase, where the highest percentage of failures usually appear, and there are detailed requirements for all relevant aspects, namely laboratory information for patients and users, requests for providing laboratory examinations, primary sample collection and handling, as well as transportation and receipt, and pre-examination handling, preparation, and storage. Some details referring to sampling have to be included in the report of results. Further to this, ISO 15189 provides for the metrological traceability of equipment and methods and measurement results. In general, these are similar to those of 17025. However, in the European region, the requirements of the legislative framework apply as well. And these refer initially to the in vitro diagnostic devices directive, which is repealed by the regulation 746 of 2017, as amended in January this year, which will come into force in 10 days, 26 May. The regulation lays down rules concerning the placing on the market, making available the market, or putting into service of in vitro diagnostic medical devices for human use and accessories for such devices in the Union. Another important information is included by reference to this in the draft standard by reference to this 17511 of 2020 in vitro diagnostic medical devices, requirements for establishing metrological traceability of values assigned to calibrators, trueness control materials, and human samples. And these standards provide one voluntary means of confirming to some of the provisions of the regulations just mentioned. There is another development expected. This will come in 3 years after the acceptance earlier this month, previous week, of a proposal from a technical committee of ISO for preparation of a guidance on the validation and the verification of quantitative and qualitative methods. This will be developed as an international standard. So it's good to know that something is coming on, although it's not a matter of being implemented tomorrow, but in 3 years' time, the earliest. Now, this diagram applies to both standards, to all type of laboratories, just a different terminology, selection of methods with regard to 17025, of examination methods with regard to medical laboratories. We need appropriate, updated, and readily available. These methods should be appropriate, updated, and readily available to competent personnel. Validated methods in standards or otherwise documented as reputable, with verification in the laboratory which is required. Furthermore, the laboratory needs to validate non-validated methods or modified validated methods or outside their scope. To this end, this guide, which is oriented to analytical methods, can be of help for medical laboratories. Anyway, there is reference to medical laboratories in this text as well. The task to ensure the validity of results, similar approaches in both standards with international quality control, IQC, and external quality assessment, EQA. In the draft standard, there are more detailed requirements than before, with more alternatives how to meet the task of the standard. With reference to 17034 and 17043 as means to document competence of the reference materials producers and proficiency testing providers. And it's underlined the need that EQA need to adequately mimic patient samples. The report of the results need to provide accurate, clearly, to be provided accurately, clearly, and unambiguously. Additional requirements can be set in the case of analytical laboratories by the customer, the legislation, or the market, while in the case of medical laboratories by the patient or the requesting physician, or specific instructions related to the examination procedures. We have similar but not identical terminology for opinions and interpretations under conditions in the case of analytical labs, professional judgment under conditions, and namely these refer to national or international legislative provisions. Measurement uncertainty is not normally included according to the draft standard in the reports. However, relevant information shall be made available to laboratory user upon request. Laboratory information management systems includes the term includes the management of data and information contained in both computerized and non-computerized systems in a way similar to 17025, and also referring to commercially off-the-shelf software, contingency plans, and off-site management. There are two slides here illustrating the various steps and requirements that validation needs to be before introduction. Changes to the system, including software configuration or modification to commercial off-the-shelf software, have to be authorized, documented, and validated before use. Safeguard against tampering or loss. Appropriate environment following supplier specification. Conditions safeguarding the accuracy of manual recording and transcription, and protection from unauthorized access. Further to this, conditions to ensure integrity of data and information. We all understand how important these aspects are for all types of laboratories and for medical laboratories as well. Recording failures, immediate and corrective actions required, instructions, manuals, and reference data to be readily available to personnel. Information systems managed, maintained off-site. In such case, responsibility of laboratory is to ensure that the provider operator complies with requirements, and calculations and data transfers to be checked in an appropriate and systematic manner. Whenever it's already included in the figure, but it's to be repeated here, commercial off-the-shelf software in general purpose within its designated designed application range can be considered to be sufficiently validated. However, whenever changes to the system, including software configuration or modification, have to be authorized, documented, and validated before implementation. When dealing with computerized laboratory information system, risks have to be considered and discussed with the help of the standard 22367, control of laboratory information system, as well as 27001 standard, especially Annex A, reference control objectives and controls, where the information security controls, strategies, and best practices to ensure the preservation of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information are listed. There is another change, again like 17025. There are two alternatives how to meet management requirements. As in the case of 17025, there are two boxes. In that case, option A and option B is the terminology used. Here, the difference is no reference to option A and option B. However, the main issue is that laboratories implementing, maintaining, and implement a quality management system, for example, in accordance with ISO 9001, are considered to meet some of the requirements of 15189, mainly those included in clauses 4 to 7 and subclauses 8.2 to 8.9. Here I put an asterisk at the end, technical competence. To our opinion, this cannot be, even in 17025, this is not just straightforward, because the technical competence is not included in such a detail as in the accreditation standards in ISO 9001. This is a matter of discussion, and this brought us to the end of our presentation with Safon, and we thank you for your attention.